Has this question ever pierced through you? If God is good, why does so much evil exist? You look around, wars, abuse, tragedies, injustice, and a part of you silently screams, this doesn't make sense. And the worst part? No one seems to have an answer that truly soothes the soul. You've probably heard phrases like, it's all part of a greater plan, or, God knows what he's doing. But deep down, something inside you remains restless. How can we accept the suffering of the innocent? Sick children. Good people dying young. Broken souls searching for meaning, while the world just keeps spinning. Doesn't that disturb you? It should. The truth is, almost no one talks about this honestly. Most people just repeat what they've been told. But today, you're going to look at this question from a perspective you've likely never considered. We'll explore how the world's greatest spiritual and philosophical traditions, from Christianity to Gnosticism, from Spiritism to atheism, each see evil through radically different lenses. And by the end of this video, one thing is certain, you'll never see God, suffering, or life itself the same way again. So stay with me. Because maybe, just maybe, this is the conversation your soul has been waiting for all along. Some say that if God is love, then evil shouldn't even exist. But at the heart of Christianity, this question finds a surprising answer. Evil is, in part, the price of freedom. Free will is not just a divine gift, it's an immense responsibility. Since Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, humanity has had the chance to choose. And with choice comes the possibility of error, of sin, of pain. Imagine a world where mistakes weren't possible, love itself would be impossible. Because true love can only exist when there's the freedom not to love, and yet one still chooses to love. And this is where suffering comes in, like an invisible guide. In the Christian view, suffering plays a pedagogical role, almost like a strict but necessary teacher. It's not desired, but it's used. Pain teaches us, shapes us, strips away pride, and lifts our eyes upward when all else fails. Many only discovered the power of faith after everything fell apart. If you speak to someone who has endured great loss and still held on to faith, you'll often hear that pain transformed them, it didn't destroy them. Books like Suffering is Never for Nothing by Elizabeth Elliot illustrate this beautifully. There is meaning, even in the tears. Within this context, the figure of Jesus becomes central. He didn't come to erase suffering with the snap of a finger, but to join in it. He suffered, wept, bled, and redeemed. The cross is not a symbol of defeat, but of transformation. And its message is powerful. Even the worst evil, the death of the innocent, can be turned into good. Jesus offers a hope that doesn't ignore pain, but walks through it. That changes everything. Because when you believe someone has already conquered death, pain loses its total power. Christianity doesn't deny the existence of evil, it confronts it. But it points to a path where evil can be overcome from within. It requires surrender, faith, and courage to keep going even when nothing makes sense. It's like walking in the dark, trusting the hand that leads you. Many stories of deep spiritual awakening begin in crisis. People on the brink of suicide who, after hearing a song, reading a Bible verse, or watching a video about God, suddenly felt an unexplainable strength rise from within. Coincidence? Or a calling? Even though evil exists, Christianity proposes that human freedom is the trigger, and redemption is the exit. God doesn't abandon, he walks beside. But of course, this is just one way of looking at this ancient dilemma. And while many find meaning in this vision, other traditions see it very differently. In fact, there is one that views suffering as a true test, and believes that everything is part of a far greater plan. In Islam, everything is under the command of Allah. Absolutely everything. There is no such thing as chance, coincidence, or deviation beyond His will. The central belief here is that Allah has a greater plan, a divine design that often surpasses our limited human understanding. And that includes evil and suffering. But take note, this doesn't mean that Allah desires evil in a sadistic way. On the contrary, evil, within the Islamic worldview, is a complex tool in a deep spiritual test. Life, according to the Quran, is a continuous examination. And every pain, every loss, every injustice, is part of that test. That's why patience, or sabr, is one of the highest virtues in Islam. It's not just about enduring pain, but moving through it with dignity, trust, and unwavering faith. For many Muslims, losing a loved one, facing injustice, or enduring extreme poverty are not mere misfortunes, they are opportunities to draw nearer to Allah. The Prophet Muhammad said that the stronger a person's faith, the greater their trials would be. It's almost as if suffering exposes the spiritual strength of the soul. In a world where many crave fast answers, Islamic tradition teaches trust in Allah's timing. There's a powerful concept called tawakkul, which means complete reliance on God. It's not passivity, it's active trust. The believer does not surrender to despair, because they know suffering has an expiration date. And even if they don't see the reward now, there is the promise of perfect justice in the afterlife. After all, the Day of Judgment is a central pillar in Islamic doctrine. Evil does not go unpunished, it is merely awaiting its appointed time. Real-life stories show how this faith shapes behavior. In war zones, for instance, where everything seems to collapse, there are countless reports of Muslims still performing their 5 daily prayers, washing with the little water they can find, turning their faces toward Mecca, and holding on to inner peace. It's something that transcends logic. This deep connection to the sacred in the midst of chaos is living proof that, for them, suffering doesn't destroy faith, it strengthens it. And this reveals a powerful truth about Islamic spirituality: it is forged in fire. For Islam, evil is not ignored, it's placed within a greater cosmic puzzle. Allah knows what He is doing, even when humans don't understand. And trusting that is part of the journey. But if, in Islam, suffering is seen as a divine test, there is another tradition that views it as a consequence of the soul's own past, suggesting that this life is merely one chapter in a much older cycle. In Hinduism, evil and suffering are not random punishments or signs of divine neglect, they are effects. And every effect has a cause. This is the essence of karma, the universal law of action and reaction. Everything a person does, through thought, speech, or deed, returns, sooner or later. Suffering, therefore, doesn't arise from nowhere. It springs from seeds planted in past lives or even in this current one. It's like a spiritual echo that always comes back, until the soul learns what it needs to learn. This completely changes the perspective. A person is no longer a victim, but the author of their own story. But there's something even deeper. Suffering, according to the Vedas, doesn't truly come from the world, it comes from our attachment to it. What we call material reality is, in Hindu thought, an illusion called Maya. Imagine living inside a dream, believing everything is fixed, final, unquestionable, and then suddenly waking up. Maya is this collective dream. The soul, or Atman, becomes trapped in this illusory theater, identifying with the body, the ego, and its desires. And it's precisely this attachment that causes pain. We suffer when we lose something because we believed it belonged to us forever. But in truth, nothing really belongs to us. That's why Hindu masters teach detachment, not as coldness, but as liberation. When one understands that everything is temporary, even suffering, a silent freedom is born. A simple example: instead of reacting with rage to betrayal, one begins to see it as part of karmic purification. And instead of seeking revenge, they might choose to meditate, to practice seva, selfless service, or to study the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna teaches that we should act without attachment to the results of our actions. This is spirituality in motion. The beauty of Hinduism lies in this dance between responsibility and transcendence. Suffering has meaning, to refine the soul, to cleanse it of its vices, to help it break the cycle of reincarnation, samsara. Each life is a step upward. Each pain, a chance to grow. Each loss, a lesson in detachment. And so, step by step, the soul moves closer to moksha, final liberation, where there is no more pain, no more illusion, no more return. Only union with the whole. It's fascinating to think that what hurts today may have once been a choice made by your soul, even before birth. This requires humility and courage to stop blaming the world. But what if pain isn't just a result of karma? What if suffering is actually created, within the mind itself? In Buddhism, suffering is not a mystery to be explained, but a reality to be understood. It's straightforward: to live is to suffer. This is the first noble truth, known as dukkha. But this isn't blind pessimism, it's a profound observation. Suffering is in everything, in birth, aging, illness, death, loss, unfulfilled desires. And even in fulfilled desires, because nothing lasts. Everything changes. This impermanence is the soil where pain takes root. But Buddhism doesn't stop there. It goes further, asking, why do we suffer so deeply from something so inevitable? The answer lies in the second noble truth: we suffer because we crave. Because we cling. Because we want reality to follow the script we've written in our minds. When the world doesn't meet our expectations, frustration, anger, and emptiness arise. We want people to treat us a certain way. We want the body to stay young. We want our work to always be fulfilling. But the world doesn't obey the commands of our ego. And when the ego gets frustrated, it calls it evil. But is it really? Or is it simply our resistance to what already is? The third noble truth brings relief: suffering can be overcome. It's not easy, but it's possible. And the way out isn't external, it's internal. The mind that creates suffering is the same mind that can dissolve it. When you train awareness, observe your thoughts, recognize emotional cycles, and learn to let go, something shifts. And you don't have to become a monk to do this. Meditation, mindfulness, reading books like The Heart of Wisdom or The Art of Happiness by the Dalai Lama, these are powerful starting points. It's like wiping a dirty window and, for the first time, seeing the world as it is, not as you wanted it to be. The fourth noble truth reveals the path, the Noble Eightfold Path. Ethics, discipline, concentration, wisdom, all in balance. This is the middle way. Neither extreme indulgence nor harsh denial, but a lucid, centered life where every step is taken with awareness. It's a call to responsibility. Evil, from this perspective, doesn't come from demons or divine punishments. It arises from ignorance. And the cure is awakening. A soft, steady awakening that begins with one simple act of awareness, breathing with presence. That's why many Buddhist practitioners don't try to explain suffering, they aim to dissolve it. And more people in the West are hearing this call: less belief, more awareness. But there is also a spiritual tradition that views evil through a radically different lens, as something embedded in the very fabric of the physical world itself. While traditional religions often explain evil as the result of human choices or divine tests, Gnosticism takes a radical turn: evil is embedded in the very fabric of matter. According to the Gnostics, the physical world was not created by a perfect God, but by a lower being, the demiurge. A limited, arrogant architect who believed himself to be all-powerful, yet operated in the shadows of a higher, hidden reality. In this view, pain, suffering, and corruption are not accidents, they are indicators that we are trapped in a cosmic prison. Earth, in this context, is not a garden, it's a spiritual trap. This perspective changes everything. Suffering is no longer seen as a flaw in existence, but as a clue. A painful reminder that something is fundamentally wrong with this world. Gnostics view pain as a leak of hidden truth. When something inside you recoils at injustice, cruelty, lies, and manipulation, it's not excessive sensitivity. It's your soul crying for freedom. Life becomes a silent battleground between the ignorance that puts us to sleep, and the knowledge that awakens. And that awakening doesn't come from the outside, it is an inward process. It's not about praying to a savior, but diving deep into your own consciousness. Self-knowledge, in Gnosticism, is the only key that can unlock the prison of illusion. Texts like the Gospel of Thomas, the Nag Hammadi scriptures, or the writings of Manly P. Hall and Madame Blavatsky offer glimpses into this forbidden knowledge. Meditating on your place in the universe, exploring dreams, observing mental and symbolic patterns, all of this is part of the Gnostic journey back to the real. The Gnostic is, by nature, a skeptic, but not a cynic. He questions what lies behind the curtain. The world says pain is normal. He asks, who benefits from that normal? The world tells you you're just flesh and bone. He replies, then why do I feel something eternal when everything is silent? Gnosticism carries a force that feels almost rebellious, but it is deeply sacred. It's not about destroying the world, but freeing yourself from it. Remembering that the spirit is light, and that this light has been imprisoned beneath layers upon layers of forgetfulness. And it's remarkable how this tradition resonates with so many people today. How many have felt like they don't belong in this world, that there's something more, beyond what's visible, even if they can't explain it. That might be the echo of the Gnostic call. But there is also a more recent faith, one that doesn't see evil as structural, but rather as the absence of a greater good. And it views suffering as part of a necessary evolution. In the Baha'i faith, evil is not a being, nor a living force opposing God. It is, quite simply, absence. The absence of good, of light, of awareness. Just like darkness exists only where there is no light, evil manifests where higher consciousness is lacking. This perspective shifts the entire conversation. It shows us that evil often arises when we disconnect from our highest potential. The divine essence is still present, but our perception of it dims. And it is in this inner darkness that suffering takes root. Not as punishment, but as a signal that something needs to be realigned. To Baha'is, every soul is a raw gem that needs polishing. And it is the friction of life, the pain, the setbacks, the challenges, that refines this gem. Suffering is not a flaw in the universe, but a catalyst for growth. It's like heat that turns clay into ceramic. Without discomfort, there would be little moral or spiritual evolution. And this isn't just theory. The history of the Baha'i faith is steeped in persecution, imprisonment, and deep sacrifice. Many of Baha'u'llah's early followers were killed simply for believing in a new era of spiritual unity. Rather than weakening the faith, this kind of suffering became a living testament to its authenticity. When one understands that the soul is eternal and this earthly life is just one phase of existence, pain becomes bearable, even meaningful. Instead of asking, why me, the Baha'i believer is more likely to ask, what is this trying to teach me? And this perspective applies to everyday life. Imagine someone facing betrayal. Instead of falling into hatred or self-pity, the Baha'i worldview encourages them to seek the lesson behind the experience, cultivating empathy, resilience, and discernment. This approach does not promote passivity. On the contrary, it deeply values conscious action and service to others as a way to align the soul with the greater good. Daily reading of Baha'u'llah's writings, prayer, reflection, dialogue, and working for social justice are essential tools on this path. Evil, when seen as a lack of light, can be countered by expanding inner illumination, and that becomes an invitation to spiritual action. While some traditions portray evil as a mystery to be feared or avoided, the Baha'i faith views it as a void that can be filled with awareness and love. But there is another doctrine that goes even further, one that claims suffering is part of a broader reincarnational design, where every pain has a specific purpose and destination. In Spiritism, nothing happens by chance. Pain, evil, suffering, all are connected to the soul's evolutionary journey. Allan Kardec, in the Spirit's book, presents a vision in which life is not a single chapter, but a long journey spanning multiple incarnations. Each reincarnation is a new opportunity, a new school, where the soul learns, repairs, and grows. Suffering, in this context, is not punishment, but an instrument of correction. It arrives to rebalance, to awaken consciousness, and to accelerate spiritual progress. It's as if the soul, before being born, chooses the challenges it will face, based on what it needs to purify or develop. Losing someone, facing illness, experiencing humiliation, or living with physical limitations may have roots in past choices. Not as divine revenge, but as karmic learning. This drastically changes how one deals with pain. Instead of asking, "Why me?" the spiritist is taught to ask, "What is this for?" That question opens the door to a deeper understanding of existence, and fosters a profound sense of self-responsibility. And perhaps the most beautiful aspect of this philosophy is that it inspires action. Rather than retreating in despair, Spiritism calls for the transformation of suffering into service. Helping others, practicing charity, studying Kardec's works, participating in mediumistic meetings, meditating on the gospel, these are tangible ways to purify the spirit. And you don't have to be a medium to start. You simply begin by living with greater awareness, listening more, judging less, forgiving more easily. All of this strengthens the spirit, and helps ease future incarnations. Spiritism also offers a unique kind of comfort in times of grief. The belief in life after death, in communication between planes, and in reuniting with loved ones offers a kind of solace few doctrines provide. When someone loses a child, for example, Spiritist teachings say that the soul of that child had a short but meaningful mission, and that the bonds of love continue, even beyond the material world. Books like Na Solar, The Astral City, and Memoirs of a Suicide capture these experiences with profound richness and sensitivity. They open windows for those seeking to understand life beyond the veil of matter. But while Spiritism proposes that everything has a higher purpose, there are those who see evil through another lens, one without divine purpose, without a spiritual plan, without doctrine. A view in which suffering is a product of biology, of society, of the raw human condition itself. In the atheist worldview, there is no grand plan, no divine force orchestrating life. Evil, from this perspective, doesn't require supernatural explanations, it emerges from the natural and social mechanisms that govern existence. Pain, for example, is understood as a biological survival mechanism. When you touch something hot and feel pain, it's not a punishment, it's protection. It's how the body, over the course of evolution, learned to say, "Stop now or you'll get hurt." In this context, suffering is not a metaphysical mystery, but a function of biology. And when it comes to cruelty, the atheist lens turns toward human behavior, societal structures, and psychological factors. Evil is seen as the consequence of ignorance, greed, fear, insecurity, and a lack of empathy, not as original sin or spiritual influence. That's why many atheists believe the solution to evil lies in education, culture, and the ethical evolution of society. The more critical thinking and empathy we develop, the less suffering we create. A clear example is the rise of secular humanism, which advocates for human rights and moral development without relying on religious doctrines. But atheism also faces suffering head-on, without illusions. For those who don't believe in an afterlife, every moment matters. The death of a loved one is final. Social injustice won't be righted by God, it must be corrected by human action. While that may sound harsh, it also carries a powerful motivation. If no one's coming to save us, then it's up to us to build a more just world. Organizations like Humanists International operate under this principle, promoting ethics and compassion not through religious faith, but through a commitment to collective well-being. In practical terms, atheists facing suffering often turn to psychology, science, art, or philosophy. They may read Viktor Frankl to find meaning in suffering, or dive into the works of Sartre, Camus, or Nietzsche, thinkers who confronted existence without turning to dogma. There are no promises of heaven or hell, but there is the clarity of reason. Pain, even without a cosmic purpose, can still fuel real transformation. Not because it was allowed by God, but because it exists, and must be understood. Thus, atheism doesn't avoid the problem of evil, it simply sees it as part of the raw reality of life. And still, there is beauty in that. The beauty of finding meaning in chaos. of building values without supernatural scaffolding, of choosing to love, even knowing that everything is temporary. But in the end, whether with faith or without it, we all confront the same silent question, and that's where the invitation to deeper reflection begins. Now take a deep breath, because after everything you've read so far, maybe the question has changed. It's no longer just, why does God allow evil? But rather, why were you living without ever truly facing it? We grow up hearing ready-made answers. Some comforting, others terrifying. But most of them are shallow. Few dare to look at this question deeply, without fear of discovering that life is far more complex, and at the same time, more sacred, than it seems. What if everything you've been through until now, the stumbles, the losses, the silent anguish, weren't punishments, but invitations? Invitations to look inward and understand that suffering, no matter how absurd it feels, carries layers. And each layer holds a code, a key, a piece of you trying to emerge. It doesn't matter if you're Christian, Muslim, atheist, Gnostic, or just someone trying to survive the chaos. The truth is, all of us, without exception, will be touched by this question at some point in life. Why is there so much evil in the world, and inside me? And that's where the turning point lies. What will you do with that now? Will you keep numbing the pain with distractions? Or will you accept that maybe pain is the beginning of a calling? Not to believe what others told you, but to investigate for yourself. To seek. To question with courage and humility. If something here touched your spirit, even if you can't explain it yet, then don't ignore that. Let it grow inside you. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and stay with us. Because in the next videos, we're going to go even deeper. And sometimes, it's only in the depths that the soul learns how to see.